welcome to the 25th episode of a Thai Football Podcast, featuring me, Dale Farrington.
And me, Rob Bernard.
Hey, it's great to have you back, Rob. I missed you last week, mate.
Oh, thanks very much. It was a great show.
Yeah, it's not quite the same doing it on my own, though. It is genuinely good to have you back on. You were missed.
No, thank you.
So we've got quite a lot coming up in this week's episode, so we might as well just crack on. We're going to rewind a whole week back to last Wednesday when there was a round of League Cup games, which all pretty much went to form, didn't it? I think there were a couple of upsets, but by and large, the bigger teams won. And I asked Kevin to report from the Bangkok FC against Port game, which he was a complete neutral at. So he was able to give us a well-balanced report, and here it is.
Thai Football Podcast Match Reports.
It's about 20 minutes before kickoff time in Bangkok Stadium. The players are currently warming up. Port FC, there's a quite healthy away fan. I could say there's probably around 100, 120 away fans. And when it comes to home, I think we might have upwards of 800 to 1,000 fans today. Let's hope we have a healthy crowd because this is a big game for Bangkok FC. Probably the biggest game so far in the season for them. So it's 10 minutes to kick off and the home crowd has turned out pretty healthy, I would say. In the stand opposite, I would say we have around 500 people easily over here at the moment. It could be more, but it's looking pretty healthy so far. So the game has kicked off. The home crowd is actually really loud, and the turnout has been really healthy for the home as well as the away crowd. I didn't know Chao Phraya Darby had something to it, but it's looking really healthy so far. Port currently on the play. Can they get a goal over here? Well done by the Bangkok FC defender, the number 5. I don't know his name, but well done. Not even 10 minutes into the game, Port lead the game by 1-0. A poor defending, display from Bangkok FC, and eventually the Port player just chips it over the keeper's head. Makes it 1-0. Right now, Bangkok on the counter attack. Is this going to be 1-1? It is 1-1. Holy it is 1-1. It's crazy. 15 minutes into the game, I think Bangkok FC are doing really well on the press currently, but I don't think so they can keep up with the press. Considering they're a T3 club, I don't think so they can keep it up for 90 minutes. But so far, so good. The score is still 1-1. A banging of an equalizer for Bangkok FC. But I still think Port might win it. They're way more clinical in the passes. But let's see, anything can happen. The Lino has had a howl over here. It's the second time the number 10 of Bangkok FC has gone down. A really blatant foul. I don't know how the Lino did not spot that. It could have been a really good counter-attack for Bangkok FC. But it's gone out for a throw-in for Port, and the number 10 of Bangkok FC is currently lying down for the second time in less than 10 minutes. A golden opportunity for Bangkok FC, and they literally missed a tap-in. It was 3v1. Bangkok could have led the game 2-1. Another defensive blunder from Bangkok FC. Port FC makes it 2-1. Bangkok FC should have capitalized on the chance they had early on. It was a tap-in, and if the game goes like the way it's going, they're gonna regret it. So it's currently halftime. The score is 2 for Port, 1 for Bangkok FC. I would say it's a pretty even game so far. Even though Port has the majority of the possession, they've hardly, been able to break the defensive line of Bangkok FC. Both the goals they scored was big defensive blunders from Bangkok FC, but I predicted the score to be 3-1 for Port anyways. There have been a few chances for Bangkok FC to come back and equalize the game, or, we can see an upset today. There's a big chance for that, so let's be on the lookout. I just came in after the halftime and I've missed the third goal. Port is leading 3 and Bangkok FC is 1. And just right I stopped recording. Port goes and scores another goal. It's 4-1 for Port FC. Things are turning from bad to worse for Bangkok FC. That's the quality difference you get from the Premier League team and the third tier team. Bangkok could have scored their second goal once again. The number 19, I don't know what he was doing over there. He just struck the ball up high right in front of goal. He was maybe 4 yards away from the goal. He should have scored that. It's almost 80 minutes here at Bangkok Stadium. The game has gone dull and boring. The score is still 4-1 for Port FC. Bangkok FC are just, playing long balls and just hoping they can get something. And meanwhile, Muang Thong has just scored their 4th goal and have kept a clean sheet. Things are back, in place for Muang Thong United. And I hope Bangkok gets at least one more goal so that the score does not look as bad as it is right now. It's been 83 minutes and people have already started to move out. It seems like a bigger crowd than the usual match day for these people, so they probably worry about the traffic. But yep, people are moving out of the stadium now. It's been 83 minutes, 7 minutes more to go. Another big miss from Bangkok FC. They do win a corner though, but that should have been a goal. It has started raining out of nowhere. People are leaving the ground even more now. Thailand's weather, Well, it's 5-1 to Port at the 90th minute. Brilliant free kick. In my opinion, it was an offside, but since there's no VAR, the goal has been given. They've just made it 6-1 as I'm leaving the stadium because it's pouring down here at Bangkok Stadium. 6-1 to Port. I'm leaving. That's my match report for today. Thank you for having me. Talk to you guys in the next one.
A neutral report? Crikey, he was out of his seat when Bangkok equalised. And I have to say, it was a proper sitter at 1-1 that they missed. I like the banner at the side of the pitch, the Bulligans.
I didn't follow the game. My only exposure to it was Kevin's report, but it seemed like quite a comfortable win in the end.
Class told in the second half, class and fitness.
I think that seemed to be the case, and as I said in the introduction, most of the games went to form. The bigger teams, even though they were all drawn away, with one notable exception, they won quite comfortably. I mean, even the upsets, or the so-called upsets, weren't that much of a surprise, were they, given current form?
Not really, although I have to give mention. I watched the 3:30 game, Udon United against Buriram, and I tell you what, at 2 each, it could have gone either way. I know that they won 4-1 at the weekend, Buriram, but Papas was lucky to be sat on the bench, because if they'd have got dumped out on Wednesday, I think that would have been the end.
It's only a matter of time, isn't it? I did watch the game on Saturday, and they won very comfortably, but Nakhon Pathom were very poor indeed. They didn't offer much opposition. So I think it's probably giving him a slight reprieve, but I think he'll be gone. I can't see him being there for the second leg.
No, whoever comes in's got a bit of a task.
As is always the case at that club. And it's not just about what they do on the field either, is it? It's dealing with certain things that go on behind the scenes and on the bench.
Indeed. Almost like getting the England job in the old days.
Hi, my name is Fran and I'm listening to a Thai football podcast.
A couple more match reports now. These are from the weekend league games. We've got Riza, who again was first out of the traps with his report from Ratchaburi's defeat at BG Pathum United. And then we've got Tim with his thoughts on Chonburi's home defeat against Port, which plunges the Sharks into real relegation trouble.
Thai Football Podcast. Match Reports.
Sawadee Krap, good evening from Leo Stadium in Pathum Thani. The match Thai League Week 13 between BG Pathum hosting Ratchaburi FC. The match ended with the win for the home team, 2-1. Ratchaburi started the game by attacking. They had the first chance, but the early injury of Jiva, the goal scorer of the team, really changed the game. Ratchaburi seems playing with 10 men. The replacement, City Chok, didn't give much improvement. The score by BG come from a crossing. Ratchaburi tried to do their best to level the score. They had chances to do, but it's just not their day to score. And in the second half, Ratchaburi tried to get back in the game, but BG seems defended very well until the around 75th minute that Ratchaburi able to score a consolation goal, we can say, and it ends until the match ended. So next game, Muang Thong United, come on you Dragons.
Thai Football Podcast. Match Reports.
Yeah, hi Dale, we've just sort of walked in. We are now 10 minutes before the start of the game. Probably about 15% full, I would say, at the moment, so a lot more than midweek games. It's quite full outside, there's a lot of people outside queuing up. What's going to happen today? Well, I don't know what the team is, so I'm thinking we probably will have our defence back, so we're going to get absolutely stuffed. When I'm better than the central defender that we have, and I'm 59, by the way, certainly up front, I think up front, you know, we were just saying this to me and Val before the game. Yeah, we had Dennis, who was a bit hit and miss, but we love Dennis. At the moment, we have someone that looks like Dennis, thinks he's Dennis, and he's just a tenth of what Dennis was. And Dennis, in all fairness, wasn't really that good. So it's woeful. Can't see us scoring. Our defence will leak a lot of goals. We're going to get hammered. I think it's going to be a tough old year, really tough year for us this year. If we escape, it's going to be the skin of our teeth. And I feel sorry for the youngsters, because certainly when you look at who they've brought in, they've been poor. And in some cases, in all the cases, not worth bringing the players in. And sometimes I think you've just got to say, why bring 4 players in? Why not bring 2 of a higher pedigree? Better for the team. But the good thing is, we're keeping it quite calm and collated here at the moment. Someone just put beer on Val's seat, so I'm just telling them off. Okay, Claire, so pre-match food, what have you had today?
I had some pasta salad that I made this morning, which wasn't that very exciting. And then when I got here, I went to the 7-Eleven and bought like a ready meal, an omelette and rice. So I had that and some apple slices and some chocolate ice cream. And that's it, yeah? Not very exciting.
Val, what's your pre-match food?
And I had the sea bass and the potatoes and the vegetables.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, that was really nice.
You can't go wrong with sea bass and potatoes.
That was lovely.
A nice Sunday lunch.
Yeah.
So I had got one of those circular boerewurst things, like I put on a griddle, like sausage sort of thing, and it was beef and liver, which was, Claire goes, the bit was really tasty. And I had the same salad that Claire had, with curry pasta salad. To be honest, I quite liked it, because the peanuts that went in it, I made them myself, and Claire wasn't so keen on the ones that I made. But of course, when you make your own peanuts, you like them.
You make the peanuts, you salted them, didn't you?
I salted them. I sort of boiled them, salted them, and roasted them. Yeah, that's making them, isn't it? You don't grow something yourself, do you, when you make it? Like you made the pasta. You didn't physically make the pasta. Anyway, we're on semantics here about food, so we'll leave it at that. So Claire, what's your prediction?
2-0.
To who?
To Chonburi.
Okay, nice positive prediction for Claire. She watched us midweek, and she actually thinks we're going to win. Do you want to reevaluate that at all? No? She's shaking her head there. She's absolutely positive. Chonburi are going to win this 2-0 against the resurgent Port, a high-flying Port. Val, what do you think?
Well, mine will be slightly more diplomatic, 1-1.
Okay, and obviously I'm right at the other end. I think 3-0. 3-0 to Port. We're going to get absolutely trashed today. Apparently we've had a couple of changes in the second half, but the good news is we're 50% of the way there, and we're actually attacking. But we're passing the ball around a little bit better. Having one defensive midfielder is better than 2 when one of them's utterly shit. But we're 2-0 down, we've got to attack, haven't we? Anyway, we've just had a little bit of quality from Chonburi. 19 picked the ball up and went inside a player, jumped him, and dropped his shoulder, hit it across the keeper, hit the post and went out. Really, really desperately unlucky. Great bit of skill, actually, to be honest. 98, good bit of play. Corner Chonburi. 11 just had a glorious chance. Ball came up over the top. Defender missed it. 1-on-1 with the keeper. And keeper saved. But should have put it away. Had the whole goal in place. 11. Chonburi have been better this second half. Okay, so here we go, another chance, Chonburi. Ball came over to the far left-hand side. 88 got the ball at the far wing. pulled it inside, cracked a shot in, beat the keeper and just missed my near post. Nice play, Chonburi. Second half, much better. 11's been good, 14's been excellent, and 88 is played really well. 7 is running around like a demon. It's nice to have a midfield who's running for the ball, but we've still got 9 on the pitch who has done nothing all game. Still got 33 who's woeful at the back. So we actually managed to keep the ball this half, which is quite nice. Playing it wide, bit of movement up front, players are running. Well, 9 isn't, 33 isn't, but everyone else is moving for the ball. So we've had a whole bunch of subs. 9 has come off, unsurprisingly really. 11 has come off surprisingly, and 33 is still on the pitch. How is beyond me. Their keeper's just been booked for time wasting. 81 minutes in, 0-2, still looking like it's going to be 0-2. 88 is now up front. I don't know why. Why would you put 88 up front? And we haven't got anyone in midfield anymore. And we've got about 5 players up front. We haven't got a manager, have we? So, no one knows what they're doing. But that's no different from the last 6 months or a year and a half, really, to be honest. 89 minutes in, Chonburi 0, Port 2. Much better performance the second half, to be honest. We're giving it a bit of a go. Younger players on. I'm surprised 11 came off, really, to be honest. I mean, maybe he's tired, but we were playing really well. Good second half. Well on Chonburi. Still lost, though, and still in relegation zone. Yeah, it's going to be a tough old season from here. I mean, to be honest, I know Port always play well against us. We're at home. This is woeful. It's really woeful.
I tell you what, BGP are coming up good. I watched them at Port the previous week, and I thought they were a good outfit. Tim, that sounds like my type of day out, Tim. Beautiful. I watched the match last night, and I know you're alarmed, Dale, but I think the Sharks are going to be okay. For what it's worth, I also watched the second half of Lampoon Pratchup last night, and I reckon Pratchup are about doomed. Conken United need to sort their defence out, or Sisaket, I reckon. Sorry, Bill. Tero, depending on the money problems. And Wongtong's money, if it arrives, will sort them out. But Chonburi last night in the second half, they weren't that bad in the first half, Dale, but in the second half, I thought they showed enough. They were very unfortunate at times.
I just fear now we're getting stranded. We said on this podcast a couple of weeks ago that there weren't really any teams stuck at the bottom, but obviously that's changed. You've got Pratchup, who you just mentioned, who are a few points adrift, and then we're really struggling. And I can't honestly see how we can turn this around. I mean, Tim said in his report about the quality of the players that we've got, and they're just not as good as what we've had in previous seasons. And we've got a lot of young lads there who, for them, this is a brand new experience, and still no coach. So I don't know. I mean, it's typical football fan. I mean, I am fearing the worst now after a little sort of glimmer of optimism following a couple of good results at Buriram and Ratchaburi and Chiang Rai. I just can't see where the next win's coming from.
If they can just get to this break, maybe pick up another couple of points somehow, and then get the new coach bounced, give him time to work with them in the break. Honestly, I thought they were a decent team last night. Port won, but there wasn't a massive difference between them. It was a good Port performance. There were and the first clean sheet Port have kept all season, believe it or not.
Oh, I can believe it. Given the quality of our attack. To be fair, Tim did predict that as well, didn't he? He said we wouldn't score.
The Woodwork had a good game for Port. Don't worry yet, Dale. Don't worry yet. I'm here to guide you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You might be talking me down at the end of the season. Anyway, moving on. We've got your report from the weekend, Rob. So would you like to introduce that?
A nice, easy win, really. Sisaket United consolidated the top of T3 North Eastern with a 2-0 win against Conken.
Thai Football Podcast. Match reports.
Calling in from the Srinakon Lamdawam Stadium in Sisaket, where the final score was Sisaket United 2, Conken 0. And to be honest, probably a game of two halves. Sisaket came out of the blocks flying, playing very good football. Our referee today, Pathum, gave a penalty after 10 minutes, which the Brazilian striker Danilo stroked home. The lead was doubled with a low shot across the keeper from Panagazzi, the Argentinian midfielder for Sisaket, 8 minutes before the interval. And it looked plain sailing. It was a good first half, but in the second half, the coach, for some unfathomable reason again, put the blocks on, brought on defensive substitutes, and that was it, 2-0. Saw it through very easily, crowd of 580. Sisaket consolidate the lead at the top of the table. After the weekend's games, there's still a point clear of the nearest challengers, Marasarakam. Final score again from Sri Nakhon Lamduan is Sisaket United 2, Konken 0.
Thanks for that, Rob. It's looking good, isn't it, for Sisaket United in that league?
It is. I think that themselves and Marsarakam, they play on the very last day here in Sisaket, and I think those two will pull away. And obviously, whoever finishes top gets that extra playoff game at home. So, yeah, I think it's looking good. The coach is very dull with his tactics, but they don't let goals in. I'm beginning to wonder whether an Italian man came on holiday here many years ago, because it's just like watching a Serie A team from 1980.
Well, if it's getting results, that's the way you've got to look at it. I mean, we can't all play with that cavalier style, can we? And if it's effective and it works with the personnel that he's got, then that's the way it's got to be, I guess.
It is, but he's got the personnel to be much better. Nice to see the players, by the way, come to Leo's after the game. My little gathering, we all had to say hello to them. They seem very nice lads.
Now, I did see this conversation you were having on Twitter with Marco, because he told us the story a few weeks ago, didn't he, about Leroy Lita being spotted in a Sisaket nightclub. Did you manage to work out if it's the same place or not?
Wasn't the same one as Saturday. I went to a very classy Belgian establishment, I'll let you know. But I have a feeling I know which nightclub it was, yeah.
I think we might have to investigate. When I'm next over, that can be our first port of call.
Good idea.
Right, next up, we've got an interview with Antony Sutton. Now, Antony has been around the Southeast Asian game for a long, long time, mainly based in Jakarta, but he did live in Bangkok. He spent quite a lot of time in Thailand, and he followed Thai football quite closely. So this is me and Antony talking about his experiences watching football in the region, and also about the 2 books he's written that focus on Southeast Asia and the characters that have shaped the game here. A Thai Football Podcast Interview. Welcome along, Antony. It's great to have you on the podcast at last.
Hello, mate. How you doing? You all right?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, it's good to speak. I think the last time we met up was in a pub in Burton-on-Trent.
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? Yeah, we need to arrange something else sometime next year.
Get to a gig or something, maybe. That might be better.
Yeah.
You've come on today basically to talk about your memories of Thai football and plug your books that you've written. Is that right?
Yeah, it looks that way, yeah. My memories of Thai football are getting more and more distant now, unfortunately. But yeah, it's always good to talk about football in Asia anyway, Southeast Asia especially.
You say your memories are getting more distant. That's something that comes with age. I can definitely identify with that. But what sticks out most for you, apart from standing me up that time at Bangkok Glass?
Yeah, that was a good trip there. I enjoyed that. It all started back in... We went to the first game together, didn't we? Well, not together, but we were at the same game, which was our first game, wasn't it? Remember that?
The international against South Korea.
South Korea. Back in 97.
97, yeah, March, wasn't it? Early March, I think, 97.
Yeah, so that was your first ever game in Thailand. It was also my first ever game in Thailand. And I always wanted to go see Thai Farmers Bank play. They had a shop in Siam Square. And I always regret the fact that I never bought any merchandise from the shop. But yeah, I'd like to, because back then, of course, Thai Farmers Bank were a superb team, weren't they? One of the best teams in Asia. But it was a funny old league in those days. I always remember looking at the paper and thinking, I want to go to see a game. I want to see a game. But you look at the fixture list in the Bangkok Post by Mr. Tor. It's quite appropriate. His first name is 3 letters because most of the league was made up of teams with 3 letters, wasn't it? So they've got SCT playing TFB, BBC playing up TAF, and PAT playing KTB and stuff like that. So it's very, for an outsider look at it, and without the internet, it's very difficult to get a handle on anything, wasn't it, in those days?
It wasn't very appealing either, was it? They used to show the games on a Saturday afternoon on whatever the forerunner of True was. I can't remember what it was now. And big empty stadiums with these lads running around in the searing heat trying to entertain us for an hour and a half.
And invariably it was raining or it looked really pretty grim. I was usually able to work on a Saturday also, which didn't help. But I remember watching the Asian Cup or the Asian Games in about 94, 95 in a little grotty restaurant place off Suriname Dupli. And they showed the Thai games in there, and three players stood out in those games for me. One was Tawan, one was Kietasuk, and one was somebody else whose name I've forgotten, but I think you probably know him anyway. And it's quite interesting how when you're watching a football in a foreign country and you don't know the lingo, some names do stick out, in part because of their name and also in part because of the way they're playing. So those three players have stuck to me. Piapong, was it Piapong?
It would have been, yeah.
So that was like my introduction to Thai football. And then really, but when I was living in Thailand, and even though I lived very, very close to Thai port, just 2 rides in the bus stop, I think it was, 3 rides in the bus. I never really went to any games. I went to the Arsenal game, which was a disaster as usual with me. Started drinking early. It wasn't really until I got moved to Indonesia, got interested in Asian football. And then I started going to games in Thailand and telling my new wife, oh, I'm just going to Bangkok for the weekend. And so, her friends are going, oh, your husband's going to Bangkok for the weekend, is he? Oh, really? That's nice. And of course I was. I could watch the football. And of course, the first game I went over for, I thought would be a good game would be Thai Port against Chonburi. And I had this really good idea about actually travelling to the game with Chonburi fans. So even though I was staying close to the ground, I got the bus out to Chonburi, met the Chonburi fans, i.e. you, and got the bus back in again. So I don't know if you remember that much about that trip.
I do. I remember it very well. Well, the buses didn't turn up, if you remember. We were waiting at the usual place, and the 2 buses we'd booked just didn't appear. And I think we'd already made a contingency plan, hadn't we, to either go for a drink or try and source a local game. But eventually, I think a fleet of minibuses, if I remember correctly, arrived at the last minute and got us to the ground in time for kickoff.
Yeah, and I think we met Marco at the ground, didn't we? He was taking his shirt off in the shop. It's like something like a Levi's jeans ad for him taking his shirt off to try on a Thai Port shirt in the shop, which was a sight for sore eyes. After the game, I walked home.
And then you were at the infamous Mung Thong Chonburi game when they were literally building the ground around us, weren't they, as we were going in?
That's right, yeah. And that was the biggest ever crowd in Thai football history, wasn't it, at the time? Was it 17,000 or something? We got in 3 or 4 hours before kickoff. Right, and there was no beer to be had anyway. We just sat there like a couple of lemons.
Watching the ground fill up and then get extended before our eyes.
Yeah.
People climbing floodlight pylons and stuff.
That's right, yeah. This old bugger on the pitch waving his Chonburi flag, the old white guy waving his Chonburi flag on the pitch. What happened with security?
Was there any? I don't remember there being any kind of organisation at all that day.
Wasn't there some kind of incident? And I can't remember.
Oh, I think the second half was delayed by about half an hour, wasn't it? I think it was just sheer numbers. I mean, the away following that day was, easily the biggest we've ever had, I think, at a game. And the crowd just couldn't cope. We were all at the side of the pitch. And like I said, they were having to open up stands to let the overflow in. And they just couldn't cope with the numbers. That was the problem, I think.
Well, the funny thing is, just before that game, you sent me a video of the Chonburi Wangtong game when Wangtong won 5-2. I think at your place. Was that the same season?
It was, yeah. That game was switched. They played it at Nong Pru in Pattaya because our ground was waterlogged and they just wanted the game to go ahead. So we forfeited home advantage. We all had to traipse down to Pattaya, and then we were 2-0 up and everything looked like it was going really well. And then they just ran in 5 goals.
Again, that's one of those games where you see him play for the first time and think, wow, this guy's something special. And that was Cowan, the goalkeeper, of course. I was impressed by him that day in that video that you sent me. So he's one of, you see players for the first time and occasionally they do stick out for you. And it just seems that it's more Thai players have done that really than Indonesian players, which is weird when you consider how many Indonesian games I've seen against how many Thai games I've seen. But I guess that's the main difference in the gap between the two countries, where the Thais are producing these technically quality players, and Indonesians aren't.
We've certainly produced a few over the years. It's just frustrating when they like Cowan again is a perfect example of someone who definitely deserves to do better. He should have really gone on in the game and made a really good living out of it. But it's just that next step, isn't it?
So where's Cowan now?
He's back at Mung Thong. He's part of the coaching staff, but they played a friendly yesterday against a Japanese team. I think it was Consadole in one of these, I don't know how they describe it, J League Challenge or something, I think it's called. And he actually played. So whether he's planning a comeback, I'm not so sure. But he could probably still do a job, to be honest.
He moved to Belgium, didn't he? And he signed for the team in Belgium that's signed by the Thai people. And these moves don't help the players, I don't think, because they're moving for one reason alone, not because of their quality, but because they're Thais and the Thai owners can say, "Look at us, look what we're doing." Even if they are good enough, there's always that suspicion that they got to move through nepotism more than any ability.
Which, of course, Taksin started in 2007, didn't he, with his old Man City?
Yeah, Manchester City. He had Surrey, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And a couple of others as well. Tero, who's still playing.
Wasn't Surrey a Steve Darby favourite as well, wasn't he?
Steve speaks very highly of him, which leads us nicely into the next bit. Your book about Steve, how did that come about?
Well, I always felt that he deserved it. I thought his story was amazing. I'd first come across him, Steve, in Australia. We never met, but he would write frequent articles in a magazine in a newspaper called the Australian Soccer Weekly, which I bought because I was following Australian football. And his name would frequently appear in his magazine, so I knew him from there. And then when I moved to Indonesia and started watching the ESPN Star Sports, he's there on television. And soon after I started the Jakarta Casual blog, when I was getting hits of about 10 or 15 a day, Steve was one of the first people to contact me. He said, "Hi, I'm Steve Darby, I'm a coach." I was like, "I know who you are, Steve. I've been following your career off and on for 15 years. So it was a massive boost for me to, when you're starting out with something, to be picked up by somebody who is, a legend in the region for what he does. And once I got involved in writing, it was kind of like, okay, well, I'll try and write a book about somebody who's the best person to do it about. And probably the easiest one I know about is Steve Darby, who has a career and a record and a tradition in Southeast Asian football. And so I said to Steve, should we do it? He says, okay, let's do it. And I spoke to the publisher and I said, okay, let's do it. Because the publisher I work with, Fair Play Publishing, are in Australia. And of course, what's forgotten about Steve is that he actually spent the longest time actually in Tasmania, I think it was, 10 years in Tasmania. So, he's got this fascinating football pedigree. And deep down, at the end of the day, he's a fan. He's a mad fan. He's as mad as you and me were when we were younger. You know how you do like fantasy league stuff during the summer, wait for the new season to start? And you'd write down like the list of the teams and the players and everything. And you organise cup competitions and league tournaments, right? And you write them down in your school exercise books. Steve's still got his. I mean, he's got stuff going back to the 1960s. Of like Liverpool winning the FA Cup. What was Liverpool winning things? So I don't know how that happened. He's got all these records from this fantasy stuff he was doing back in the 70s. And to hear him talk about his time like that, you can hear the passion of football, but he's kept it all. He's mad as a hatter. He's kept all that stuff. It's fantastic. He's not worried about medals or trophies, right? Have you got any medals? I think the one we might over there. And by the way, here's my fantasy football from 1971. Oh, and here's a cricket from the same year.
He's got a wealth of stories to tell as well, hasn't he? Which again, when you're writing a book about someone, is a big advantage, I guess. So do you have any favourites from his time in Thailand? I mean, he's told me a few off the record.
They're the best ones.
Yeah, they are the best ones. Yeah. So are there any you can kind of share that will pass the censors?
He was down in Indonesia for a Suzuki tournament one year, and don't ask how, but my wife was on the medical staff of the Indonesian national team that day. I have no idea how that happened. And so she sat in the VIP section or whatever. And I'm in the press box doing it for the local newspaper. And for the second half, Steve was told to go up into the main stand and watch the game from up there, I guess to let him know a different viewpoint. And so as Steve goes into the main stand, my wife's going, Steve, over here. So he spent the whole of the second half sat with my wife, nattering about whatever, I do not know what, instead of watching the game. So I don't know if he got in trouble for that, but that's the kind of guy I guess he really is. He's a few players told me he's a proper people person. He's happy talking to people about football or just being with people. So even though he's there on international duty, he spent the game chatting to my wife. And I think a day later or something, 2 days later, we were sat in a bar at the hotel in Jakarta, and I can't get over this. I was sat in the bar in Jakarta, which I did once or twice, with Steve Darby, Dave Booth, who was coaching Lao. He was coaching Thailand for many years as well, I think, and India. Steve Booth. Oh, no, this is Brian Robson. Brian Robson was there. And the Singapore coach, Roger Kapoor, was it? Or was it? No, the Malaysian coach. And I'm sat with these coaches of national football teams in this bar having a beer. And I thought, what the hell am I doing here? I'm just a fat English guy with too much free time. And I'm sitting and listening to Brian Robson asking the Malaysian coach what went wrong. And they're sitting there discussing tactics, peer to peer, respect to respect. And I'm like, this is fascinating. Because, you have this, because of the media we have in the UK, you have this image that Brian Robson's like on his pedestal. He's like some kind of great god or whatever. But he was the most down-to-earth person you could meet when you consider his status. And he's talking on a level with the Malaysian coach. And, he wasn't upset by me being there or anything. And the only thing I was upset about was I had to leave because I had some mates waiting for me outside. But I could have stayed there for hours and just listening to them because it was just, a fascinating occurrence. Another thing about Steve was, again, I think it was Tyler was in Indonesia, and I didn't always do reverent posts on Jakarta Casual, did I? I was did some like irreverent stuff sometimes. And I did one post about how, the Thai players were a bit tired because the night before they'd been out in Block M, which is a notorious bar district in Jakarta. And about 10 minutes after I'd written that, Steve sent me an email. Can you please get rid of that, please? In case any of the Thai media read it, you'd be surprised how they get onto stuff. Because he said that if the Thai media picked up on it, then they'll both be in the shit. Him and Brian Robson or Peter Reid, whoever it was, would both be in the shit before letting the players go out. He said even though it's not a serious post. So I deleted that straight away, and I was happy. I didn't want Steve to get in trouble over it, but I guess that comes about because he builds relationships with people, doesn't he? And he gives people a lot of good information. And he said to me one time, actually, when he first meets somebody, he says he gives them information and sees if they use it or not. And if they use it, he says he never talks to them again.
It's a good way of testing if you can trust somebody, I think.
It is, yeah. And obviously, I must have passed the test. And over the years, and we've always had I've always enjoyed talking with him about football in Southeast Asia and his career, and his honesty. It's just sheer honesty about everything. But also the hard work he does. And I love the fact that he was born in the shadow of the Kop, and I think, for the first 10 years of his life, he never left his postcode, basically. He didn't need to, because he had Anfield next door. He had a school just after that. He had the World Cup come to his back garden almost, for Christ's sake. I mean, come on. So, you could forgive him being insular, but he wasn't. He was the most open-minded person. And you can see how maybe some of the players in Malaysia and Singapore responded to that, because I guess growing up, he had this idea of what it means to be in a kampong, in a village, in a small community, which many of the footballers in Malaysia and Singapore also have. So he instinctively understood their mentality, because that was what he'd grown up with. So it's quite remarkable how somebody who basically never left a certain area of Liverpool went on to coach around the world, do a bloody good job along the way, pick up a number of languages which you can use to a fairly decent level, and win a few trophies as well, and be highly respected. So, he's an English success story, I think, which deserves to be better known, I think.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I haven't spoken to him anywhere near as much as you have, but every time I've approached him for something for blogs I've been doing or websites, he's always been there. He's always responded really quickly, and the information that he's given me has been great. I think he's kind of, I think the phrase "well travelled" was written for Steve, wasn't it? And it's great that he's in recognition. The only thing I'd take issue with, apart from Tamla Motown, is his taste in music, which is pretty appalling.
Well, we tend not to discuss that. Yeah. We're talking about never leaving his postcode. I mean, while he was growing up, we had Beatlemania and the Merseysound, and his mother used to work just around the corner from the Cavern, and yet he was at home writing down his little fixture list and coming up with his dream teams. Or playing Subuto with his best mate around the corner. It's fantastic. He's so single-minded on football all from day one, and didn't really care about the Beatles, wasn't interested in the Beatles.
That's been great. I've really enjoyed that, and thanks for sharing some news stories and some new insights into Steve. And if you want, now's your chance. You can plug the books you've got for sale. They make great Christmas presents. So over to you. Plug away.
So there's one called Steve, the Itinerant Coach by Steve Darby, who we've just been talking about. It's available from Fair Pay Publishing and also on Amazon. And the other one is called Support Your Local League, about watching football in Southeast Asia. The focus obviously is on Indonesia, but there's little bits in there also about Thailand, Malaysia and Singapore. And I mean, looking back, I had a great many years traveling around Southeast Asia watching football. I was back there just recently, actually last month, saw some games in Singapore and Indonesia. And part of me still misses it in a way. It's good to do it, and hopefully I'll get back and do it again sometime soon. But if you do want to know about football in Indonesia and Southeast Asia, check out Support Your Local League, available also from Fair Play Publishing and from Amazon. And thank you to Dale for giving me this opportunity to try and sell one or two more books before Christmas.
My pleasure, mate, as always. And thanks for that. Thanks for taking the time, because I know you're very busy. And hopefully we will catch up before not too much longer, maybe at a match or at a gig.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch, mate, and then we'll try and sort something out. And if you press stop now,
I'll press in stop.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dale and Antony. That were a lovely interview. Some smashing stories in there, and the love of the game comes through from both of you. I'm still reading The Itinerant Coach, and it's a good read. And I have to say, it confirms what Antony was saying about what a dedicated man and football lover Steve is. It's a cracking read. I love the opening bits of it, going back to Steve's childhood. It reminds me of myself in some ways.
There were some good insights in the interview as well, weren't there, where he talked about Steve compiling his his fantasy football teams and his cricket teams. And as he said, that's something we all did back then. Those of us of a certain age, that was how we spent our time.
Simpler, harmless days.
It was nice to turn the tables as well. Antony's interviewed me a few times for his now, shall we call it moribund, Jakarta Casual blog spot, which was a real go-to source of information back in the day. He was updating it every day, 3 or 4 times, in fact, and it was always a fascinating read. And as he said, very irreverent at times.
Yeah, it was good. Without trying to blow smoke, I could sit with you two and have a very long drink, I think, and chat about those times.
Oh, thanks, Rob. Well, we'll try and arrange that. That'll be lovely. With or without a tape recorder?
Yes.
Anyway, some more exciting news. Anthony has very kindly given us a free copy of his book, signed by Steve. Anthony's very quick to impress on us that he hasn't signed it. It's just Steve Darby that's signed it. And he's going to offer that book as a prize in a competition.
Competition time.
So if you'd like to win a copy of The Itinerant Coach by Antony Sutton and signed by Steve Darby, you have to answer this simple question. Which football team does Steve Darby support? And then if you can send your answers in to the usual places, we'll put the link in the show notes under here, and I'll put it all over social media on Twitter and Facebook. You can send it in. Then when we get all the correct answers, we'll have a draw and we'll announce the winner next week. And it's a great prize to win. As Rob's just said, it's a fantastic book. So well worth winning.
Hi, I'm Sabina. I'm listening to a Thai football podcast.
We're going to close this week with the ongoing saga is Police Tero, and Graeme Watson, who's a regular contributor to this show as a Police Tero fan, and he's sent us his thoughts, just summing up the situation as he sees it. So these are Graeme's thoughts on the current situation at Police Tero.
What a shambles of a situation at Police Tero. The club need to look in depth at how this was allowed to happen and why guarantees were not put in place when they jumped on the Cambodian money truck. The Cambodians are silent and have had no open dialogue with the fans on what the real situation is. I think this is poor and unfair. The club officials, not just the Cambodians, need to take some responsibility here. Rumors of all foreigners and up to 10 Thai first team players leaving. If we survive, T2 here we come. Every team circling for Isaac Hani. Without him Tero cannot defend or attack. However, Zhang Wujaun has been great up front. I understand the players wanting to leave. It's just a pity that all teams will now be looking to grab a bargain at Tero's expense. Seeing Isaac Hani in a port shirt will make me sick. The Trat game at home was the lowest attendance of the season and the atmosphere was dead. The fans seemed dejected and no one really knew what was going on. I have heard that Chang are due to pay the sponsorship money in December, which means players will get 30% to 70% of what they are due. If this is true, it's too little too late. On a positive note, 3 days in Chiang Rai coming up. A cracking place for football and a piss-up. Who knows, we might wake up one morning with a Christmas bonus, full wages, a new 10-year deal for Isaac Hani, and go into the rest of the season full of confidence. Keep up the good work with the podcast, guys. Really enjoy it. Cheers.
Blimey, Graeme. I don't know whether it's the stress or the free pop on the way to Utton Tiny that's affected your vocal cords. But I tell you what, you're striking a chord with us. It's a terrible state of affairs at Tero.
It's rotten, isn't it? Absolutely shocking what's going on there. And it doesn't look good. I mean, even though he said, they might get, might being the operative word, 30 to 70% of their salary, it's not looking good, is it? I mean, seriously, we could be seeing the end of the club here.
Well, I hope that they can get through till this break and find salvation somehow. It's very important we don't lose a member club, especially from the top flight. It would be a disaster. The game at Chiang Rai will be kicking off after we've done this recording. And nothing against Chiang Rai, I'll be cheering for Tero tonight.
It doesn't matter who you support. It's never nice to see this happening to another club. On that bombshell, that's the end of this week's podcast. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and fingers crossed for Tero and their future. So, what are your plans for this coming week, Rob?
Well, it's the big derby here next Saturday. It's between Riza and Sisaket, so I'll be getting to that. But until then, I might watch some games in the Insurance Cup on Wednesday. It's the quarter-final rounds. The fixtures, as ever, are on Facebook.
Right, well, whatever you go to watch, enjoy, and we'll speak next week.
All the best. Take care wherever you are.